and we look at this as like primarily strength
Right.
oriented. So why are we doing this? And I think the actual, like, maybe first the weightlifting things that we've been doing comes back to hunting, right?
Hunting and gathering, right?
So, throwing stuff was one of the biggest inventions for the human species, because suddenly we could, track prey and we could hit them from far.
Being on a podcast
The
thing?
pitfall is too much of that.
But writing to me it's a compulsion.
I was one of those hard workers that.
Quite honestly, the fitness industry and the sports performance industry has probably done a better job in looking at nutrition as it impacts it than
Supersonic, we're live.
Oh, we're on.
Oh, we're on.
Oh, hello.
The red light is on air. Oh, this picture is not straight. Oh,
On the right. There.
there we go.
There you go. Now it's symmetrical.
No,
All right.
looks good.
How are you?
Yeah, good. I'm just came from outside. I feel, it's actually dropped in temperature since this morning. Been doing some PTs outdoors.
Nice.
Feels great. A bit of drippy nose from that, but
Yeah.
but no, good trainings.
Good.
And you, Mrs. New style.
Yeah, I chopped my hair off. Yeah, it's pretty short. Feels good.
Yeah.
I mean, I just trained and I didn't have to move my hair around. I did, a whole bunch of burpees and nothing was getting in my face and my eyes. So nice. It feels lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that feeling right now. When I'm working out, I feel like my hair is just everywhere.
Tossling around.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a hair ad. Yeah.
So we're opposites today.
Well, now hairdressers are open. Hairdressers and garden centers.
And brothels. and massage studios.
But not gyms.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's dangerous.
But I did read that group outdoor activities might be able to start soon.
Yeah. So you're allowed to start training 5 people outdoors.
Yeah.
From 2 households.
Right.
So earliest where any group can meet is going to be end of March outdoors. But let's put it this way: it's not super clear how to keep track of that. What number? Where should I find that number? And how is the police going to police that? And who is going to police that? And see how that develops.
Yeah. Well, we have a interesting topic today to kind of go off of last week when we talked about the history of the kettlebell.
Yeah, exactly. We're into the history of things.
Yeah. And I do enjoy doing a little bit of research into these, little history dives.
Suddenly makes more sense.
Things do make more sense, and all week long now, since the kettlebell talk, I'm much more just zoned in on it, and I look at it differently. It just I know more about it. I have a newfound relationship with it.
Yeah, I get the names.
Yeah. I line them up nicer now, and yeah. But today, okay, so we're going to be talking about weightlifting and a little bit of a history lesson about that. And then I'll ask you a whole bunch of questions and learn some new things about, weightlifting and how it's, come into CrossFit and how we can use it to our benefit. Just the benefit of it. So, but to give a little history lesson, weightlifting has been around since ancient Egypt, right? My husband was making fun of me because I was telling him, I was showing him pictures of archaeologists that, dug up brass dumbbells.
Yeah.
And they don't look so different from the ones that we have here today.
Isn't that strange?
You can trace it back to, to China and the Han Dynasty. They had powerlifting clubs, and they would lift things like trees, from the ground, and deer, and, have these clubs and competitions. So even, in the time of, these dynasties, and in the time of Jesus and before Jesus, we had powerlifting clubs. In ancient Mesopotamia, there was artwork and murals left behind that they have they've uncovered, and they depicted pictures of strength, and what they were used for was to kind of scare away potential enemies. So it was kind of like the world's first leaderboards, right?
the open leaderboards.
Exactly. And in Egypt, that was the place of modern weightlifting. One thing that I found really interesting was one of the most popular techniques they used a sandbag, was something that resembles what we would look at today as the clean and jerk. But they would hold the bag, once you clean it, they would hold it, jerk it above head and hold it for, kind of prolonged periods of time. And that was, their competition. So there's a little kind of overview of some history about weightlifting.
Yeah. We can dig deeper into but why? Because we talked about this last time. Why do human beings want to compete in who can carry it the longest and do this and so on? Why do we do this?
Yeah.
And we look at this as primarily strength oriented. So why are we doing this? And I think the actual, maybe first the weightlifting things that we've been doing comes back to hunting, right?
Hunting and gathering, right.
So, throwing stuff was one of the biggest inventions for the human species, because suddenly we could, track prey and we could hit them from far. And eat, this was probably even before we were Homo sapiens. So we could throw, a rock or something, a distance and kill an animal and get fresh food, meat. And why this was so important was because when the transition between being a scavenger, where we were just eating leftovers, to eating fresh animal meats, was that you get the prime stuff from the animals, meaning you're eating the kidneys, you're eating the livers, you're eating the all the good stuff from the animals. And there seems to be a key component to why and how human race and actually developed and evolved into Homo sapiens, because all that nutrient dense food allowed our brains to grow. And before that, it didn't grow that fast. But the big growth came from that. Okay, now we were allowed to, or it was possible to kill a prey on distance, and there's prey all over the world. So, and the biggest source of food back in the days were probably, elephants or elephant-like animals. And they were really good prey for human beings, but, you can't just go up to it and try to strangle it. No, you have to throw stuff at it and spears and stuff like that. And the good thing with those animals were probably that just like elephants today, they don't really fear human beings from the sight, because it's a small little ape coming. So that's probably one reason why we were able to, extinguish the mammoth and stuff like that. So, because they don't really care, but you can come close enough to throw a spear, a really dangerous spear, and then hunt them. But those are theories. But so the better you are at throwing stuff, well, you're going to be more important for your pack, and obviously you have to train that, and then you start to train, and then you start to measure like how far can you throw this, and so on, and it translates to later into other objects, of course, like how far can you carry this, because we need to do this.
And I guess that is how kind of the competition evolved.
Exactly.
And
we constantly have games. Oh, you still got the jump. So we play games, but every animal, not every, but most animals do. We play games so we can get better. And it's a competition. It's a game. And even the coolest thing about games, we're totally off track here now, but the coolest thing with games is that since every animal is doing it, there is also some ingrained part of our brain always looking for fair game. So if an animal is not playing fair, then the other animals reject that animal. So you're not allowed to play games anymore. And why this is important is that if you have, so there's a very famous study from whatever his name was, but they've been studying rats, and one big rat and no small rat, and the big rat is constantly like poking the small rat, hey, shall we play a game? And usually it's like rat wrestling. And the scientists discovered that the small rat has to win at least 30% of the games to continue playing. So for the big rat, it's very important not to win all the games. But to actually allow the small rat to win some games. Because that would make the small rat to continue to play games. And
but then because we come from living in packs, right? And the idea that there was a head of the pack, does that have anything to do with kind of the dominant one, like the winner, right?
Well, I think this is a confusion that I don't think there were not many packs that were successful that had, the leader of the pack was necessarily the one who could throw the spear the longest. And because that, again, comes back to playing. that as the leader is the one who can actually engage with everyone the best.
Right.
And has to be good at and have like competence, but you can't just be, out wrestling people.
Right. They have to be able to delegate.
Yeah. And people don't want to play with you if you're constantly just arm bending me into whatever you want.
Yeah.
And you can see this with apes. So if you have, I think it's like baboons, and you have like these baboons that are, they are, tyrannical, and they you have like a leading ape was just hitting everyone and so on, and it's like everyone just tries to escape that tyranny.
Yeah.
And what happens is it takes, I don't know exactly the time span here, but it doesn't take too long for a couple of apes to kind of to realize that if we go together, we can kick this guy down
and form this like alliance.
Exactly. So there it comes back again. Yeah. If you can play with people, you can have more power, and it's trust and everything. But so it's very important to play. And this is kind of, if you look at from human beings now, it's usually like this, that when you're parenting, it's usually the dad who's playing the hard, tough games with the kids, wrestling with the kids, and that's also playing. But if me as a dad would always just strangle my kid, and always put the kid to, just feel worthless in one sense, never have the chance to win. Well, she would never, or my kids would never engage in a game again. Right. Because that is always just, forcing me to the ground. And then, So, right. And weightlifting is also, that's
nice segue.
Yeah, it's
very good.
Play. It's a game.
So getting into, weightlifting, I wanted to first, talk to you about, or ask you about, in CrossFit, we do use or implement the Olympic lifts, but I thought first for you to talk about the three main Olympic lifts, and, where we see them and how we see them within the confines of a CrossFit box.
Yeah, so basically we have, it's it's two lifts, really. It used to be a third one, which they took away, I don't know, 40 years ago or something. But the basic lifts are clean and jerk and the snatch. And you can divide the clean and the jerk, of course, but basically if you can clean a weight and don't jerk it, well, it doesn't count. You have to do both. There used to be also the third lift, which was the press.
Okay.
And that's not that they took it away in the 70s, I think. I'm not 100% sure. But yeah, and they established this, the clean and the snatch and so on. I think they established that maybe in the 30s or so. So we haven't really, it's a very young sport in one sense, but it's like all games, they develop and so on. But so in CrossFit, what we do is we implement the clean and jerk, we implement the snatch, but what we also do is that we have taken parts of those lifts and done and used them in workouts. Okay. Which you wouldn't do maybe as a weightlifter.
So like in a powerlifting club or something.
No, but a weightlifting club, because a power lifter would not even do weightlifting.
Okay.
They do powerlifting.
Yeah.
And So the weightlifter would look at CrossFitters and things like, well, why are you doing like power cleans, 20 power cleans after each other? That's not the way you train when you do weightlifting necessarily. That's a part of doing weightlifting, but I think it's Mike Bergner who says like a clean, like a squat clean, as we might say in CrossFit, is a failed power clean, because it's basically you can't power clean it anymore. So you do a lot of power cleans, but you don't, do 20 in a row necessarily. Yeah.
Okay. What makes a better athlete? A traditional CrossFitter or a traditional weightlifter?
Yeah, good question. I think the CrossFitter gets more well-rounded. And it comes into context, of course, that if you are doing weightlifting as a sport, or if you're doing CrossFit as a sport, it's also a different conversation, because a weightlifter would be, he has tremendous, speed and flexibility and stuff like that, coordination, but not over modal domains. Like he will be very good prepared, but like a CrossFitter, like the very good best CrossFitters are even, for women, they are in the same league as the pros, pro weightlifters. So they're already kind of showed that, well, doing CrossFit, I can just go into your sport. Right. And by doing CrossFit, I can go into this sport, into rowing, I can do these. So, of course, maybe I'm biased, but I'm just thinking from the lens of work capacity, while the CrossFitter works more on work capacity, so over modal domains. And it's going to be forced to learn much more new stuff. Yeah. A weightlifter will get stronger than a CrossFitter. Yeah. And technically better, because he spends much more time on just developing those last, incremental percentages. Right. Yeah.
We were talking about this earlier, so I wanted to ask you this for you to talk about a little bit, for people that maybe, didn't realize or don't know, but, when we're talking about weightlifting, people think about it and they think, only strength, but I'm curious if you could talk about, the flexibility that, the flexibility that you need, the flexibility that you develop going into weightlifting.
Yeah, and this is, a common misconception is that, that you get big and bulky. If you are able to lift heavy weights, you need to be big and muscly. You need to have muscles, yes, but the correlation between like muscle mass and moving weight is not always, it could be, but the normal picture is that people have is like bodybuilding, which is just aesthetics. It's building muscle mass, not necessarily building work capacity or building strength. So to be able to express strength or power and speed, you need to be flexible. If you're not flexible, you will be weaker. And you can see this. This is usually the common problem that bodybuilders have. They're very stiff, so they can't lift the same amount of weight as a weightlifter. And also the same thing comes down to power lifters.
Mm-hmm.
So they are like tremendously strong power lifters. They can, like the strongest strongman, deadlifts 501 kilos or whatever it is, with over 1,000 pounds. And they can do this like deadlift from the ground, and do, like kind of clean and press and stuff like that. But if you tell this power lifter to, do a clean and jerk with the barbell and so on, they will not be able to clean and jerk as much as a weightlifter. Because usually many of these power athletes, they are lacking in flexibility. So that's like the biggest component that they are lacking, that I think there might be like physiology, like because of also a bit of the mass that they build up. But ask them to do overhead lunges or something like that, they will probably just drop so many percentages in weights. Usually you can observe this in strongman competitions when they do presses overhead. Their hands are usually like this in front of their head, because they lack shoulder mobility to press overhead.
So how does one gain shoulder mobility and flexibility?
One good thing is to actually do things overhead.
Yeah.
That was I think it was Eddie Hall, the British guy, the strongest guy. He's heavy and super strong, but he can't do a handstand, for example, because his arms are locked here. Like he's never been doing stuff like straight overhead. Then you lose capacity if you don't use it, you lose it.
Right. If the lifts are not necessarily difficult but incredibly technical, and for example, like Olympic lifters specialize in their specific lift, why does CrossFit have them if it's not an intentional, specified lifting program?
Okay, so the question is, so why are we doing these specific lifts if we're non-specific? We're a sport, or it's a sport, or it's a training regime method that is not about specializing.
Right.
I think it's just the development of the neurological component of it, and to honestly understand at least some of the basics of moving weight from the ground to your shoulders overhead. And training this is hard for the brain, and that it's also nice for the brain to develop those skills, and it's practical for outside the gym too. A weightlifter, for example, can get very good at, or he's very good with the barbell and so on, but it translates also into lifting up a rock from the ground.
Right.
All those like strongman stuff too. So, incorporating that into CrossFit. It's not. I think it has to do a lot with the coincidence that it actually happened. But it's also one of these things that most people that start with CrossFit just also start to love.
Right.
Even though they never thought like barbells would have been very good or fun for them, or that's definitely not me and so on. But we see that all the time. So many people that get, they basically get very in love with the barbell.
Yeah.
Oh, the picture went out. Let's see here. we can change into this. See, that works.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Hi.
A bit more grim.
So that kind of leads me to the question that I had. Why would people kind of shy away or be fearful of lifting weights, or specifically the barbell?
Yeah, specifically for the, well,
what are the things
let's say let's say the barbell, we have the weightlifting, and then maybe kind of the strength training with the barbell. But yeah, what makes people shy away from it is because of, what they see that people are doing. So they compare themselves to the world champions of something. Mm-hmm. And it's
pretty high stakes.
Yeah, which is very interesting, but it's like, I guess it has to do a bit with, general perception of what weightlifters look like, what they do. Maybe it's a bit of the, let's say, the picture of it, how does like a typical weightlifter look like, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So the association is maybe not so appealing for many. Mm-hmm. Because we only see, CrossFit and CrossFitters and so on. So for us, we see it everywhere, but for most people, they have no idea. Mm-hmm. They have no idea. So in their picture, they're still seeing these like pictures from the 20s, how a weightlifter looks like. Yeah. Or from the Olympics, some guy in they have some kind of suits on, that I don't know, they look ridiculous.
These wrestling suits.
Yeah.
These onesies. Yeah.
Which is like, nobody wants to have one of those on, Yeah. But for the guys in that sport, that's like, yeah, this is how you look like. It's just like in any other sport. Yeah. Like if you do judo, you have this type of thing on. But in my world, that's like, I don't want to have a kimono on. Like,
right.
It's not me.
Yeah.
And so if somebody tells me like, hey, BJJ is so good, you should try it. Like, I love that. And my association is like, well, do I have to dress in that, white kimono?
Yeah, the white pajamas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's not me. Mm-mm. But again, it is not like that. Not with weightlifting necessarily. You don't have to dress like that. Mm-hmm. And you also don't have to grow a big beard and so on. And you don't have to spend 4 to 5 to 6 hours a day doing weightlifting to get like 90% of the benefits of it.
Right. Yeah.
You can learn the basics of it and have tremendous positive output from that.
So speaking of like the positive output, like how will lifting assist you in other areas of your programming? For example, like, will it help you with box jumps?
Yeah, for sure. Like weightlifters are extremely explosive, so they can jump. There are these videos of weightlifters, they can jump like 2 meters high. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get extremely explosive for jumping. Mm-hmm. For running, of course, it translates into strength, like pure strength, of course, meaning, well, you have much more options outside the gym for anything. If you're a, cyclist, well, you get better like strength, endurance. It translates into almost all sports except for chess, maybe. No, I wouldn't.
When it comes to programming, how does somebody even start? What should they look for?
When it comes to learning, well, you probably need someone to teach you that. And, to go through the basic metrics, basic stuff. But, I mean, when you advance a bit, there are different schools, like you have the Russian way, the Chinese way, you have the American way, and then you have the nuances within those. You have also, Bulgarian, Kazakhstanian type of weightlifting technique, and they all work with different programs.
Okay.
But so which one is the best is usually the question.
Or how do you find the one that works for you? I mean, do you try all of them?
I think the best evidence that it doesn't really matter is that every one of these have one. Now the Chinese are looking pretty good, and why is that? Well, they sacrifice big parts of their lives to be in the weightlifting gym. So I would say that's one of the main key reasons. From small age, they drill hundreds of small kids into weightlifting, and they have these weightlifting schools where the kids are only doing weightlifting until they're older. So they have much more time and attention. And the Russians used to do that too, and that's the good and the benefit of totalitarian regimes is that you can just force people into doing stuff, and then you can get incredible outliers from that. But is it because the program is better, like the way you have the setup of the stands or so? I don't really think so. I think it has more to do with the individual aspects from how a coach would coach someone.
Right.
And you can see this with Chinese weightlifters too. You have some Chinese weightlifters are slightly different than others because they've simply noted that this athlete needs to work a bit more like this. Some common stuff is that when you have the setup of the clean, for example, so one weightlifter, the angle of the chins will be a bit different from someone else, and a good coach should be able to distinguish that, to see it looks like your tibia is a bit longer or your femur is a bit longer, so we have to maybe set you up a bit differently. And when it comes to regular Joe in the CrossFit gym, I mean, it's all about just moving safely. Having the perfect weightlifting setup is not as important. I mean, it's more important that you just lift safely, and could you maybe be lifting 5% more if you would, get drilled into this perfect weightlifting stance or whatever, for sure. But is that super important for you now for, your overall fitness and health?
Right.
And it's not that important. It's just like with CrossFit, it's, you have to get good at weightlifting if you want to be good at the sport of CrossFit, but you can't spend all your time perfectionizing your weightlifting skills because you're going to lack other skills.
Could you talk about the differences between using a high weight with a low speed versus the lightweight weight and high velocity, and how does the body adapt to each one of those? What happens? There's a second part to this question that I'll ask.
Well, moving at slow speeds, you have much more time for reflecting consciousness of which muscles are working and so on. It's time on the tension, and it also allows the body to maybe build a bit more stability. But that stability is useless if you can't use that in like a real world scenario. Yeah. For example, if I would only practice doing like slow, I don't know, walks. Like, well, the bus is coming and the bus is going.
Right.
If I want to catch the bus, I need to know how to sprint too.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean that I never walk. No, I can still perfectionize my walking, and get better technique that maybe translates into better running. But I need to do both to be, practical. And usually like the golden part is usually power and speed,
Right.
Which is a combination of everything. You need to be flexible, you need to be everything. And then,
So how do you, in a program, how would you like appropriately, and of course, being able to progress, cycle, those two different methods?
Definitely combine those.
And what happens to your body when you do cycle like that?
It's a bit individualized. Like if it's very specifically, if we say you and me we would work on this, and we say our goal is, Rebecca, you want to get to 5 years. Then we craft out that plan, and that will, we would need to assess some stuff and so on. Then we might see that, hey, some of the weaknesses for you, Rebecca, is, you're super fast and you're super strong in your legs, but we will need to work on your shoulder mobility, so it means that we make a plan that might be, a bit of more strengthening the upper body, evening out maybe some strength and weakness areas. And we would do those slowly and progressively work up the weights, and then combine that with, under speed and control, and see how speed affects your control, and increase the speed, and all looking for those speed wobbles where you see the head. You're not in control, so now we're gonna, constantly pick until we see that there is control there.
Right.
Then we combine that with, slow training, slow movement control, and back and forth. I've seen plenty of like different ways of doing this, and I think, for example, when it comes to weightlifting, is so important to have also, having brains even, you need to be, you can't just be stupid about how you are. You need to understand yourself very well. Like if you have a lot of self-doubt and psychological parts going on too, well, you're not going to be a good lifter. Because you're gonna put yourself in a situation that's not beneficial for you. However, if you are in balance, you will be able to create more force. And I think what some of the weightlifting coaches are looking for is that like really, really tremendous ability to put yourself into focus and like pain in one sense, and just being able to get the neurons to go through the signals going through your body, through the nervous system, and create that output. I mean, they measure this, right? So you can measure how good a signal goes from the brain to a muscle.
Wow.
And when you are up in those like maximum lifts, it's about who can, generate the maximum output there. And there are so many things coming into that. So, well, your sleep, your nutrition, and so on. But then also the psychological part of it, like to have that extreme focus in those situations. And I think that's one of the main components from people to become really good lifters.
Wow, interesting.
So you can't just get strong. It's
right. Yeah. There's a psychological component that kind of trumps all. Yeah,
and I mean, many sports have that. I would say, but I guess it's and weightlifting is no different. It's not just about raw power. So,
right.
And even if it is the raw power, you only get that maximum raw power through that maximum output. And that's why you do a max lift, and many people just they what's it called? They faint.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Well, let's leave it on that.
Okay.
Fainting.
Let's table that.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. I hope some people had something from this.
Yeah. Well, there's lots of very valuable pearls of wisdom and stuff to think about next time you pick up a barbell.
Yeah. I think key takeaway, I would say, for many that are just doing CrossFit for recreational reasons and so on, is that you don't have to be a perfect weightlifter, but like make sure that you're doing as perfectly as well as you can, meaning as safe as you can, but also if you try to make your technique as good as possible, you're going to be able to lift more, but you're also going to get healthier. So.
All right. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's Friday, so have a great weekend.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be it's still long until this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Being on a podcast,
Any pitfall is too much of that.
The writing to me is it's a compulsion.
I was one of those hard workers that
I think, quite honestly, the fitness industry and the sports performance industry has probably done a better job in looking at nutrition as it impacts it than